speakers are going to talk. On behalf of the CAL FIRE Siskyou unit and CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 4, I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your patience the last few days. One of our priorities, and I told you at the last meeting, was that we wanted to get you back into your residence as quickly as we could, and that was an absolute priority for us. And one of the things that stopped us from doing that was a laundry list of safety items. And we talked about some of those at the last meeting. From the trees that were hazards, to the freestanding chimneys that were hazards, to some of the homes that were destroyed to the point where there were freestanding walls and they were posing a hazard to electrical lines. Some of you might not have heard, but one of our firefighters just the other day was at one of the structures that burned and had some burn injuries to his leg because he fell into a hole in one of the structures. And our goal was that you weren't in that situation and that you weren't that burn victim. So we wanted to make sure that all those hazards were mitigated. So again, I want to thank you for your patience. So I want to warn you right up front that our goal is to give you some information that's not necessarily going to be the best information today. At the end of the meeting, we're going to break out into some sessions where we'll be able to talk to you about your properties, and then we'll talk about what's going to happen the next couple of days through this meeting. I believe that we're going to have some information, not all the information, about some of the pets that were left behind. And so it's definitely going to be probably not the most somber meeting, and I apologize that for up front. One of the things that I always kind of think in the back of my mind is it's always terrible waiting for the bad news. Much worse than when I actually get the bad news and I can process it and actually start dealing with it. So unfortunately today's going to be one of the days that we share some of that bad news with you. I apologize right up front, but we are here. There's a bunch of us in uniform here, and I want you to know that we're standing right beside you today as we give you this bad news. And we're going to walk through the next couple of days with you and try to make the next couple of days a little less painful, even though I know that's going to be tough to do. So with that being said, I want to bring up Operations Chief Lindgren, and he's going to go over a brief operational briefing today.
Good evening. Scott Lindgren, CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 4 Operations Section Chief. Just out of curiosity, we did this a couple nights ago. How many people were at the meeting a couple nights ago? Okay, good. Quite a few again. So I'm going to kind of touch base on what we're doing on the firefighting side and what we did out there the last few days. Just a quick overview. I think a lot of you know, but if you're new this time, the fire started down here in this area. There's the right down here at the base. That's a hill that has the repeater side up on it, and the wind was blowing out of the south, blowing to the north. And what happened is the fire started down here at the base of the hill. It made a hard run up to the top of that repeater side, going to the south. It was kind of sheltered from the wind there. As it hit the top, it picked up the wind and it threw the embers over the hill to the north. And all of those embers that we call ember cast, each one of those embers, about 90% of them started new fires. And so our folks, your local firefighters, they chased it up the side of that hill, and then when it got to the top, it blew those embers over the top and it started running through the town. And then your local firefighters, again, did an outstanding job, by the way. Your local folks did what we call flanked it. And they chased the fire and flanked it along the sides and chased it all the way to the north until they could get all the way around it. They brought in some air tankers. You probably saw that. The air tankers threw a lot of retardant down on the ground, the pink stuff that's out there. We're still in the process of trying to clean some of that stuff up. And what that was able to do was able to buy our firefighters, your firefighters, some time in getting around it and stopping it from spreading any further. So they did some outstanding work. Our team was dispatched at about 6 o'clock that night, Monday night. The fire started around 1:30, give or take, somewhere in there. And our team comes from all over California, as far away as San Diego. And as we started arriving, myself, I was the first ops chief that got here. I got here around 10 o'clock, and your local firefighters had already had the forward progress of the fire stopped. And they had a pretty good line almost all the way around it. And so they had it corralled, and they had it stopped. And typically when a team comes in, the fire's still running, and the team has to jump in and continue to fight the fire. So what we came in to do is we came in to support your local firefighters and continue to get them some rest and continue to make sure it stayed within its perimeters. So over the last few days, we've been able to keep it within what we call our box, which is the fire perimeter, and it didn't expand any further. We have had a couple flare-ups here and there, and each one of those flare-ups was dealt with and it didn't grow. So the size, the acreage of the fire didn't change from the very first night when we got here. We had a lot of issues in the mill that you're probably aware of. The big, huge chip pile that most of you are aware of was like 4 stories tall. When I got here about 10 o'clock that night, I went, oh my gosh, we're going to be here for weeks. There was so much fire in there. They went after it that night and all night, and the folks from the mill, Roseburg, brought in equipment and worked with our firefighters. And by the next day, it was 200% better. And if you go look at it now, and I tell people that didn't see it ahead of time, they'd be like, oh, that's no big deal. It doesn't look like anything, because of all the hard work that went in there. They kept the mill decks, log decks, from catching on fire, and they did some outstanding work in there. So I want to applaud the local unit, the local firefighters, your firefighters from Siskyou County and Weed and Mount Shasta. They did an outstanding job. So just quickly, I want to just kind of talk about what we've been doing today. So what we're doing now is we're mopping up, we're cleaning up the hot spots. We're taking out trees that are hazard trees that burn, that are a hazard of falling. There were trees falling throughout this fire, throughout the night, so we've identified any hazard trees within the area, and we've taken those down. We've extinguished almost all the hot spots that are interior of the fire. There's still going to be a couple that flare up. The wind really blew the last few days, I don't need to tell you that. That was actually a good thing in the fact that it was able to test our fire lines. And our fire lines that were established that first night held the fire. So our folks were out there mopping up and making sure there was no more hot spots, making sure that the line that was established all the way around this thing was good and was going to hold. They also went out into the area that the embers went, and they did what we call gridded, which they just basically did searches out there for any heat at all. We've had some infrared flights of our aircraft over the fire at night that show hot spots, and we don't have anything outside the line right now at all. That's all been done. We've done some cleanup on the power lines that have all been repaired and restored. PPE&L did some outstanding work on that, and we worked with the water company. Still a lot of work for us to do, and as we start to repopulate, let everybody back in, the firefighters are going to be out there still working and looking for hot spots and looking at any ways that they can help you and assist you. And that's about all I have operationally. I'll be around after the meeting if you have any other questions specifically for me about what we did and how our map is. Thank you.
Now I'd like to bring up Chief Truax, and he was in charge of our damage inspection team, and he'll talk a little bit about that.
All right, good evening. Like Steve said, what we've been doing the last 2 days, we've had 6 to 8 teams out in the field going through each one of the properties within the fire perimeter area to assess the damage and collect data, different data that we're looking for. But we've got the preliminary data that we've collected so far are the structures that have been completely destroyed, and then some that have been damaged with a percentage of damage. And that's the data that we've gotten so far. We're about 95% completed with that. We will have a few teams out in the field again tomorrow. You may see us coming around to your properties. If we come to your properties and you're there, we may even ask you some questions just so we have a little bit better data for our finished product. data that we compile, we've got some folks over the next few days that will be compiling all that into the report that we'll turn back into the incident, and that information will be available to the county assessor's office, which will help you guys rebuild as you move along. Like Steve also mentioned, after the meeting tonight, we're going to make available to you guys some breakouts, and you guys can come in as individual households, look at the data that we've collected on your residents, and we can kind of show you what's out there if you haven't seen it. On a good portion of it, we've even got photos of your lot, how it sat either yesterday or today.
I'd like to bring up Deborah Gurman from OES.
Hi, I'm from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and I've been doing these disasters emergencies for about 21 years. And I have to say that when I was coming up here, I thought that it was going to be so much worse without the amazing work that the fire and the law and all of you community members did. It would have been a lot worse. So you did a marvelous job. So we're here to bring in all of the state resources that we can, bring in any resources to help to get this community back on its feet. We normally work with the cities and the counties. We work really closely with CAL FIRE. We always have worked with them on a lot of disasters, so we're bringing you whatever we can, whatever we can bring to the community to help you get back on your feet. We do have a form out there that we want you to fill out if you've been affected, if you had damage or lost your house. We have a form where we have some information we'd like you to fill out at the end of this meeting. And then we also have a person that will be out there that has some information on housing that would be available currently. She's got some information for you and she'll be out there. Anyway, so we're very sorry for all of what you're going through right now.